Advanced techniques scoring a pattern. If you decide that you'd like to score a pattern, then what you're going to do is you're going to use a chalk line. You'll have a tape measure and you'll measure out your lines. If you want like a square or a grid, then you're going to measure, let's say that you want a 2-foot or a 3-foot grid. You're going to measure every 3 foot. You're going to take a pencil and you're going to mark on the concrete with your pencil where that line goes on both sides. And then you're going to have someone to help you, and you're going to use a chalk line with blue chalk only. Never ever use red chalk. And using blue chalk in your chalk line, you're going to stretch that chalk line across and you're going to pop that line. You do that for all your lines for your entire grid so that whenever you're done, you can see the pattern in its entirety before you start scoring or before you start cutting anything. If you're going to want to put diamonds in a room, then one thing that you could do is you could first run a chalk line from corner to corner, from opposite corner to opposite corner, from the upper left to the bottom right, and then chalk line from the upper right to the bottom left. So you get your crosshairs going across the room. Then you measure off of those lines ever so often, every 2 foot or every 3 foot, and chalk those lines. If you do that, then you have got your center in the center of the room. And also, if the room is any kind of rectangular, it'll tend to stretch the grid out so that instead of being perfectly square, turned on angle, you'll have actual diamonds. And that really works out well and really looks cool. So if you're going to do diamonds, don't do a grid turned. Go from corner to corner and get your first marks in the center of that room and then measure off of those. You'll be very pleased with that. But remember that you need to get all your lines in place so you can look at it and make sure that you're happy with it.
Okay, so this is really important. If you decide to use a skill saw to do your scoring, you can do it with a diamond blade. Here's how you would do it. Measuring tape, measure the distance from your skill saw blade to the fence of your skill saw. Then set your straight edge that same distance from your chalk line that you flipped, and then run the fence up against that straight edge. It should have a pretty good line. However, one thing to keep in mind is that concrete is often wavy. There's a lot of variance in the height of concrete, and it can cause your skill saw blade to bind. Makes it really hard to cut. So we don't recommend that you use a skill saw. We recommend you use a 4.5-inch grinder with a diamond blade.
You're only scoring about a 1/16 to an 1/8 of an inch deep. You don't want to go any deeper than that, because if you do, you're only going to create a dirt trap that's going to hold dirt. If you look at a real tile floor, the joint in between the tiles is very thin. There's not much difference. And you don't have to worry about it not being noticeable, because even with just a 1/16 or an 1/8 inch score, whenever you stain it, then the stain will settle into that line and it will make the line slightly darker than the rest of the floor. You'll use a real thin straight edge. It's about 1/4 of an inch thick. Again, you can use a piece of aluminum, but you lay that straight edge right down up against the line, and then the actual diamond blade will be held up against that straight edge, and you just run it right down the concrete. And whenever you're scoring concrete, pretty much as fast as the grinder goes across the concrete, or as fast as you can move that saw across the concrete, is all you need, because you're not scoring that deep. And with a diamond blade, it goes pretty quickly.
If you're going to score a pattern in a room, you may want to do a border. Because the score blade is round, it will hit the wall, not allowing the score to go all the way to the wall. But when you do a border, it allows you to get a complete score, plus it adds to the overall look.
There's 2 different ways of going about scoring also. One is to score first and then stain. The second is to stain it and then score it. If you score it first and stain it, then the joint is going to be colored just like the floor is, or just like the concrete is, but the stain will settle in that joint and it'll be slightly darker. So it'll be like whenever you do tile and you color the mortar to try to blend with the tile. And that is the most common way to score it first and then stain it. However, if you would like for your score joints to be the color of natural concrete, you can stain it first and then score it, and then your score line, will reveal the color of natural concrete, and it'll have that look. And that concludes the scoring the concrete section.